I have seen that some candidates, they are really good in technical part. They are easily able to crack the technical interview, but they really struggle when it comes down to the behavioral interview. And many people have these questions in their mind: why companies are taking behavioral interview after the technical interview? What's the reason for that? What kind of questions come in the behavioral interview, and what kind of answers are expected? What are the ideal answers? So, guys, I have taken a lot of behavioral interviews in my career. So, let me share all my experience with you in this particular video. Let's get started. So typically, when the hiring starts for any technology role, the initial interviews are mainly around the technical rounds. So rounds related to programming or explaining your projects, explaining different approaches that you have taken for building those products or applications. But at the end of the interview process, there would be a behavioral interview. And especially in the big companies, in the top product based companies, you would definitely see a behavioral interview round. Now, why companies are taking the behavioral interviews? See, anyone can build the technological applications, right? So, based on your technical knowledge, you can answer those technical questions really well. But how you perform in the role doesn't depend just on your technical knowledge. Your non technical aspect, in terms of your communication skill, stakeholder management, handling conflicts, handling different stakeholders, working collaboratively with the teams, all these aspects definitely matter in deciding whether you would be successful in that particular role or not. And these skills are not evaluated during the technical round. That's why companies are having dedicated behavioral round to evaluate these skills. And in this round, companies trying to understand whether you would be able to work effectively. Are you a good cultural fit? Is your mindset and thought process fitting with the thought process and mindset of the organization? So all these things companies are trying to evaluate during the behavioral interview. And based on that, they would get better indication of whether you would be successful in this particular role along with your technical knowledge. And that's the reason why behavioral interviews taken for hiring in specifically top product based companies. Now, in the competitive market, there can be multiple candidates which have good technical skills required for that particular role. Now, how to differentiate between those candidates and how to choose the best candidate? And this is again one reason why taking behavioral interview helps companies to identify who has a better talent, technical as well as the non-technical skills, the behavioral skills. And this is another reason why companies take behavioral interview. And in the behavioral interview, the kind of questions you would get would be to evaluate your behavioral aspect as well as your stakeholder management aspect. So let's go through some questions and answers now to understand what exactly happens in the behavioral interview. Now, one example of a behavioral interview question can be: tell me a scenario where you had a different technical solution as compared to technical solution proposed by someone senior in your team, and how you handle that particular situation. Now, if you see this question, your answer to this question would help interviewer to understand that if this happens in the real world, if this happens on job, where you might have a better idea than your senior person in the team, would you be able to defend that idea? Would you be able to present your idea in a right way? The second kind of question can be how you have handled a situation where you had a difficult stakeholder. So, for example, a stakeholder with whom it is very difficult to work, a very demanding stakeholder, stakeholder which is demanding something which cannot be delivered in a given timeline. So, how you handle that particular situation? This kind of question can also come in a behavioral interview. So, whenever you are answering any question in a behavioral interview, you can use a STAR methodology. Now, what is the STAR methodology? So whenever you get any question, first of all, explain or answer that question using example. If you just talk with some sentences without any concrete example of how you have done that in the past, that won't help you to crack behavioral interview. So you can stick to the STAR methodology. So in STAR methodology, first of all, S stands for situation. So describe a situation, what kind of challenging situation it was. Then the second thing is task. So what was the exact task that you had to do in that particular challenging situation? The third thing is action. What kind of action you took in handling that challenging situation? And the last thing is R, which stands for results. So what was the outcome of the action that you have taken? So you have to use this STAR methodology whenever you get any question in the behavioral round. So for example, if you got question related to there was a difficult stakeholder who was difficult to manage and how you handle that situation. So you can say that situation on XYZ project, we had a stakeholder who was really demanding in delivering the project in, let's say, 2 weeks. But we as a technical team, we were aware that this can be achieved only after an effort of 4 to 5 weeks. So that was the situation. Now, what was the action? What was basically the task for you? The task for you was to convince that particular stakeholder that this cannot be achieved in a given timeline. That was a task. Then the action, what kind of action you took? So in terms of the action, now there are different ways in which you can handle this situation. Now the one possible action is basically you explain the similar work which was done in the past and how it took 4 to 5 weeks to get that done. Then you explain the technical complexities involved in that particular work to get it done within 2 weeks and why you need that 4 weeks. So explaining that to your stakeholder. Then the third option could be involving someone who can have impact on that stakeholder. So for example, involving someone senior who can have a better authority in explaining that particular thing to that particular stakeholder. So that can be an option if the stakeholder is not agreeing at all to what you are proposing. So these kind of things can come into action. And what is the result of it? So result of it is that stakeholder agreed to accept the timeline of 4 weeks instead of 2 weeks for delivering that technical project. So in this way, you have to use a STAR technology to answer any question related to the behavioral round. And most of the questions that you would get in the behavioral round would be to judge how you handle different challenges while working in any IT role. So please make sure that you are preparing for the behavioral round. If you are not well prepared, believe me, you would struggle in the behavioral round. So spend some time in going through at least 10 to 15 different questions which can come around the behavioral round and write down the answers for it, because you have to think about how I have handled these scenarios in the past. So it is very important to write it down and prepare for it. If you do that, you can easily crack the behavioral interview and you would be able to get that offer which you want. Thanks for watching the video, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.